Hey friends, what's up? I tried every Svelte UI library so you don't have to. Today we're going to look at the best Svelte UI libraries. So I don't want to give you analysis paralysis, and the only libraries I would actually recommend you use from this list are ones from the headless and the tailwind category. Of course there are other ones that have some potential. I included them because they're awesome work from these developers, right? And then we're going to look at some other awesome agnostic solutions. There's a lot of great options for Svelte that you can use that aren't Svelte specific, right? And there are some other libraries I love, such as Svelte UX, which we're going to talk about later. I couldn't find an exact category for them, but yeah, let's get started. Alright friends, so let's start with one of my favorite categories, which is a headless UI component library. And what is basically a headless component? Well, a headless component just gives you the lower level API, so it gives you the logic, it does all of the hard work like accessibility. For example, you can't style a select menu however you want in HTML, so you have to implement all of that logic for screen readers and etc, and that is really painful. So when a library like Svelte UI comes around, which has a bunch of these things already figured out, all of a sudden the UI ecosystem around it is going to explode, because now everyone can use this base headless UI component library to make any other library that they want. And you're going to see how it looks like. So for example, let's get started, and it's really simple to use. So I always look at a select component because that is what I most often need, and that's always like a pain, right? So let's look at this. So here's what I'm talking about. So I have to press tab, it has to be responsive, right? And then we can select a flavor, and now we can see I can use my keyboard to navigate around. We can pick all of the choices. So imagine how painful would this be to implement yourself, and this is why this is so hard. But now anyone can use this lower level API. And what do I mean by that? Well, that's one of the downsides of using something like Melt. If you just want a quick component, you're going to have to stop for a second and have to learn how it works for Melt. So for example, we can look at the code. This wants you to create your own components. So for example, you import create select, create melt. Now you create the option, that is the easy peasy part. So this is a bit verbose. So now we have to use these cons, you have to initialize this, and then you just use the raw primitives. And this looks like a lot because it uses Tailwind by default to style this thing, which is another beautiful thing. You can use Tailwind, and they also have an option for CSS. It doesn't have it for all the examples, but cut them some slack. Like, this is so hard to do all of these things, right? And to have both examples for Tailwind and CSS. You can find it for other examples, but you'll be using your own CSS, right? So this isn't something that you use Tailwind only, this is headless. So you can do whatever you want, but they provide you here with these base styles, so you don't have to do that, right? Of course. And you can see here we do this, we use Melt, pass it the favorite here, and then we can use these other stores from Melt, so you can use Melt menu, and then we can loop over these objects and etc. And that's basically it. So now someone like Bits UI, which we're going to look at next, and come around, can take this base API and they can make something more user-friendly, which is simpler to use. But I actually love using this raw Melt UI as it is. It just takes a second to learn what you can do. They have all of these options, right? It might look intimidating, but as you can see here, how many components there are that you can use, which is really beautiful. You can see what you can use and etc. And yeah, that's really beautiful. The only advice I would have for Melt, if Thomas is listening or someone else, it would be really lovely to just start simpler with this example. So for example, if I go here to view code, I just want a simple select. I really don't even care about these submenus like sweet savory, but then the problem is you go to view code and this is just too much, right? I know it's a lower level API. I think this is just too much. Have more examples, start simple, because this might look intimidating to someone who's looking at this for the first time, because they're using these object entries to loop over the keys, and then they're looping over the items. When for a basic select, when I try it out, it's just a couple of lines of code. It's really super simple. This just makes it look way more intimidating than it should be. So actually, this is my actual advice, to simplify these examples. And there are some other examples you can try out, but yeah, that's basically it. It also looks great, but you can of course style this however you want. And of course, let me know if you would want a separate video on Svelte UI, because I would actually love to do it. This is really great. I want to give a megaphone to this library, because you're going to see an explosion of awesome Svelte UI libraries, because this is the hardest part, right? This accessibility, logic, and this lower level API. Now everyone else can take advantage of this. And of course, this is easy to use. If we go to the installation, we can see simple npm or pnpm command, we can install Svelte UI, and then we can use a preprocessor to make things simpler, so you don't have to pass and spread all of these things around. So you can see how this looks like. This is the more verbose version where you need to spread these things, but you can just use this preprocessor, which is really a couple of steps, and then it's way easier. You can just say use melt, and then you can pass it whatever you want. Alright, so huge shout out to Tomas and Huntabyte who made this library possible. And speaking of Huntabyte, he made another library. And yes, if you're not aware, I'm speaking of that Huntabyte of YouTube fame who you can subscribe to. So he made, besides working on Melt UI, which is incredible in itself, he also made Bits UI, which is the headless component for Svelte. So this is what I was talking about. Now we have this lower level Melt UI, so someone can come in and now they don't have to worry about that low level stuff. They can work on the user experience. So Bits UI is an unstyled library, customizable, accessible, of course, because it just extends Melt UI, right? Consistent and etc. And then we can go to getting started. You can see how simple this is. So you just install this and now you don't have to worry about this. You need some quick component, right? It's of course not styled, but these examples which you're going to look at have Tailwind classes and etc. But you don't have to use Tailwind. Of course, this is headless. You can use Tailwind CSS or regular CSS. So you can see how simple this is. So you now import accordion and now he made these components for you. So now everything is easy peasy. You can see there's a bunch of components. There's a combo box here. And of course I will look at select. So let's look at a select and you can see how beautiful this looks like. So of course, when you go here, when I press tab, everything works, enter, boom, I can use the navigation here. And I think, of course, it has type ahead, so we can type light. Yeah, so it's going to do that. You can see how much goes into making these components because this isn't something that you can customize. So let's look at the code here. You can see it looks a lot simpler. Select, fly scale, they're importing this from utils, and there we have this theme. So this is the thing, and then we're just using this component, select.root items, we pass the items in. It looks verbose because of Tailwind, right? I know some of you have a lot of opinions on Tailwind, but that's really not important. We're going to look at Tailwind in a bit. So of course, leave me in the comments all your favorite takes on Tailwind, like smellwind, failwind, crapwind, and etc. I'm going to love reading all of those. Okay, so you can see how beautiful this is, but of course, as I said, Tailwind is optional. And then it shows you here the structure. This is how it looks like. You can just copy this easy peasy. Here is the API reference. So for example, you can use data attributes to style this. So for example, I can look at data highlighted. So now you can use this to highlight when you hover over an item, and all of this is documented here. And they even have this section here. Let me see. Styling. So it shows you how to style this. So you can use post CSS, whatever else you want, and you can use data attributes to style this. And it's really simple and lovely. The docs are awesome. And there is an interesting section here on delegation. So I think this talks about using another element to replace this. For example, if they're using a button in some place, you can replace this with your custom element by using this, what was it, schild prop. So now you get this builder from Melt UI or whatever, and now you can spread it and you can use whatever element you want. So this is really great work as usual. But yeah, if you're interested, check out Bits UI. This might be one of my favorites besides Melt UI because it's so simple. You can use Tailwind, you can use regular CSS. The choice is up to you. And we can look at some other things like combo box. And now you have more things here. You can start typing and etc. Watermelon. And yeah, that's basically it. Alright friends, so let's talk about one of the least controversial topics ever, which is Tailwind CSS. So first let's start with Skeleton UI, which is a lovely UI toolkit for Svelte and SvelteKit based on Tailwind CSS. So if you go to the get started, it's really simple. You can go for their quick start. You can set it up over a CLI or add it to an existing project. You can see here they have themes, so you can change themes here. You can even create your own themes. I like this crimson one, but let's just stick to skeleton. So you can see here they have colors, their design system, right? Their color palette and etc. And then they have these design tokens here, which you can look at, variants and etc. So under resources, you have these theme generators. You can even easily generate theme. They even have a Figma design kit for skeleton, so you can check that out if that's something you enjoy. But yeah, here we can see under this section, you have typography and forms, how it looks like, right? And here are some Svelte components. You can see they have a bunch of components, accordions and etc. So one thing I think that could be improved is to tighten up some of these components. So for example, let me look at list boxes. As you know me, I always look for the select menu, which has a bunch of names. It's going to be select, combo box, list box, and etc. So one complaint I have about this is that when I want a select, I want something that actually looks like a select. Like I have no idea what this weird looking UI component is, right? And then you look at the source code here and it looks a bit weird, right? By the way, the docs are excellent. It shows you the source codes and etc. But I would love to see these examples tightened up a bit. You can see here they have all these great things, and their dimension here use the native alternative for the select, but I'm actually confused with this because they already have a select here, so I'm not sure what's going on here. But yeah, that's the only complaint I have about Skeleton UI, and that I would love to see more components. But yeah, great job guys. I really love what you're doing with Skeleton UI. So yeah, let's continue to the next one. Alright friends, so next let's look at Flowbite. And Flowbite is really a cool looking official Flowbite component library for Svelte. So here if you go to the get started, you can already see it looks really neat, it's opinionated, right? So you don't have to think about these components. And I think under forms, let's find a select. Yeah, so we can go here and we can see their docs are excellent. You can see you can easily copy the code over. They show you even here for responsive sizes, mobile and etc. And you can see when we expand this code here, it looks really straightforward. So you can just copy over this code and you're done. The only thing I have against Flowbite is that it seems that they actually don't have fully customized components. So for example, if I look here under choose option, you can see they styled this select, right? But they didn't really customize this. So you don't have really that much customization, right? And if I even inspect it, let me just look at the code. Yeah, we can even open it here. I might be wrong with that, but I'm pretty sure. So if we look at that, let's see. Yeah, so this is just a regular select. I'm not sure if they have like an actually custom one. So you can see this is just the regular browser one. And you use these component libraries to do that sort of work for you. Otherwise, you would do it yourself, right? It's good looking anyhow, right? Let me just close that. And they also have some other cool things. So they have light and dark mode. Everyone has that, right? I think. And they also have right to left, left to right, so you can change this very easily. But yeah, basically, if Flowbite is something that you're interested in, go check it out. Alright, so the last one on the list is really fascinating, and that is shadcn. I don't know about you, but each time I try to read shadcn, I read it as shadcn. I don't know why, but that's how it is. Alright, so why is this so much different? Again, this is based on Tailwind CSS, and if you go to get started, this is an unofficial community-led Svelte port of shadcn/UI. But this is not a component library, this is just a collection of reusable components you can copy and paste or use the CLI to add it to your apps. So there is no dependencies, this isn't some package, right? This separates the logic from the styles, so you have complete control. It's basically like you author the library yourself, so you can find it in your sveltekit project, you can change whatever you want about it, and I think that's really such a cool idea. So if you go here to the installation, you can just pick sveltekit, and then it tells you what you need to do to set up Tailwind and etc. And this is the part where you set up it to be used with the CLI, so you just tell it, okay, here's where these default things are located, right? And then you can just start using the CLI. So for example, if you want a button or select, you just say npx shadcn/svelte, add button or whatever else you need. And they also have a design kit for Figma, which is really awesome if you're into that, right? So let's look at the components. So you can go here, again, it has a bunch of components, which is really great. And then it has some styles here. It has the default style or New York. And you can just go here and you can select a fruit. Of course, you're going to select a banana, which is really great. So as you can see here, you just need to run this and it's literally just going to copy the files over in your project. So like you wrote this library, so you have complete control. And you can see here is the usage. So as you can see, here is the import star as select from lib components UI select. So you can see there is literally no package and it's really simple to use. It's Tailwind only, right? Which is expected, right? And then you can see some other examples here. And of course, the documentation is lovely. You can go here to the code, you can see the code and you can just copy and paste it over. So I just think that shadcn-svelte is really genius. I really love this approach. I think this might be one of my favorite ones from the Tailwind side. Because it's really simple, it's really minimal, you have complete ownership, control, and customization. Alright friends, so as I said at the start, I don't want to give you analysis paralysis. If you want to pick a UI library today, these are the two sections that I recommend. So you can pick one from the headless section, so Melt UI or Bits UI, or you can go the Tailwind route, Skeleton UI, great, or pick shadcn, I think those two are my favorite. Alright, but for you who maybe prefer other things, let's look at some other things. So here we have Material UI inspired library. So here we have Material, we have Smelt, and here we have Svelte Material UI. To be honest, I'm really not a huge fan of Material UI, and especially of these libraries that use this older Material UI design. And I know some of you are also going to say, oh, but what about Carbon from MDN? Listen, Carbon is if someone looked at Material UI and asked, okay, how can we make this worse? That's all I'm going to say. Okay, friends, so let's move on. So here we have these beautiful libraries, and of course, all this is going to be linked in the post if you want to check out the link so you don't have to search for this yourself. So yeah, we have for Material, Smelt, and here we have Svelte Material UI if you're into that, right? I'm not going to judge you, okay? So here we have some Bootstrap inspired ones. So we can look at SvelteStrap. So this is just going to look like Bootstrap, and here is a newer one, Agnostic UI. You can also check this out. But yeah, if you can see here we have all these components, you can check this out. I'm really not a big fan of Bootstrap, right? But that's just so you know that it exists, right? Alright friends, but maybe you don't need all of this in quote complexity, right? So you can look at some agnostic UI libraries. One of those is Daisy UI, which I absolutely love. So this is the most popular Tailwind CSS component library. So it adds class names to Tailwind CSS so you can make beautiful websites faster than ever. So if you look at this beautiful landing page, we can see how we can style a component. So here is this a lot of junk from Tailwind CSS usually, and basically this just hides it behind a class like regular CSS, right? But it's absolutely lovely. So you can go here to their components. You can see they really have a bunch of things. You can pick this. Of course, the downside of this is framework agnostic. So this isn't really going to handle the logic part. So you have to implement the logic part yourself. But if that's something that you love to do, then this is definitely for you. So here is another one that really isn't a component library. It's like Tailwind, but CSS variables. And I absolutely love this idea. And you can even use open props with Tailwind for the design tokens and etc. So here we have open props, which is made by Adam Argyle, who is an absolute legend. So he just gives you the CSS variables that you can use to create your own design systems and etc. This is really great. I absolutely love this approach. But yeah, you can check this out. Also, again, all of the links are going to be in the post. So here is something that I never heard of. I don't know how to pronounce this, Praline or something like that. It looks absolutely beautiful in my opinion. So this is crafted with Tailwind CSS and it's framework agnostic. So Praline UI is an open source set of pre-built UI components based on the utility-first Tailwind CSS framework. So you can check this out. Looks like they also have a design kit in Figma, which is important for a lot of people. But yeah, you can check this out. I think their components look really great. So here's another interesting one that I keep hearing people mention. So Shoelace is a web components based one. So it uses web components. So for example, let me just find select here. As you can see here, it's absolutely great because they actually customize all of these things, at least I think so. So we can go here and you can see here from the source code, you can see it uses web components. So here, this weird looking things is a web component. So this works in any framework that you're using. Alright, so the next one is one of my favorites, which I picked as a top one last year. So Pico CSS, and they redesigned this site and it looks absolutely beautiful. So if you need something quick for prototyping, you really don't like Tailwind CSS and etc., you really just love minimal CSS, you can use Pico CSS and you can't go wrong. It's absolutely lovely. As you can see, you don't have to type a bunch of class names. You can just really type short class names, you can get a lot out of it. And it also has a classless version, so all of the things are going to be styled for you out of the box. So here it even pokes fun of Tailwind CSS. Here is an example utility CSS framework on the right. This can get out of hand, right? But here it is in Pico CSS. So if you need something to prototype quick or you need something simple, please check out Pico CSS. Alright friends, so for the honorable mentions, I have this other section. So the first thing I want you to check out is Svelte UX. And this is just something I didn't have a category to put in because while this does look like a component library, etc., it's really more like a collection of useful components and utilities. And I could have put this in Material UI, but honestly, I wouldn't do it that dirty, to be honest. But yeah, let me just actually show you what I think is the coolest part of this library. So we can go, for example, here where we have some actions. So for example, we can go here to the spotlight effect. So you can just import spotlight from Svelte UX and you get this cool spotlight looking effect. But there's a bunch of cooler things here. So for example, under effects, here we have this GUI effect. So you get this morph effect, which looks really cool. So you can see it works on a variety of things. You can just import this and that's basically it. We can also look here at the shine. So you get this spotlight effect. And then this is also super cool. So here you can import tilt from Svelte UX and then you also get this cool tilt effect. You can set the brightness. You can also get the shine effect. So like those special Pokemon cards or whatever, it looks really cool like that. But yeah, I definitely want you to check out Svelte UX. Alright, so for the others, here it is attractions library. So if we go to the docs, they have these beautiful components. So if we go to the components, accordion, autocomplete, and they look absolutely beautiful, but the downside is that it depends on Sass, right? So you need Sass to use them, etc. But I thought this was really a cool library. So here we have this carbon component svelte. I don't think I have to say a lot on this. All right, so let's move on. So this is another cool one. So Grail UI is a headless component, and you can also see there they have docs. So you can go to the docs and look at these components, right? It's also great. The only downside is that it doesn't really have a lot of components, so it's really not that ready in my opinion. But if you want an alternative headless UI component, you can look at Grail UI. Here is another cool one. So this is Kahi UI. So if you need an easy to use Svelte UI for rapid prototyping, you can use Kahi UI. So you can see how it looks like here. Just some code here, import button card text. It's really simple, so that's maybe something you're into, but yeah, you can check this out. So here this is Svelte Tailwind UI. I think this is what the name means. So again, they have a bunch of components here. You can check this out if you want. So another one is Svelte Atom. So this is a UI library for Svelte based on the Atoll design. So you can check this out if you want. Again, this looks really simple, so you're spoiled for choice. So here is another one that I used in the past, Svelte Headless UI. You can check this one out if you want. And then you have Svelte UI, which is based on Mantin. So if that's something that you enjoy, you can check out Svelte UI. But yeah, you can see how this looks like. You can toggle it on, off, and etc. And the last one is going to be Svelte, so you can empower your development with our extensive UI component library. So you can see how this looks like. So this is really tailored to Svelte. So you can see here you have light and dark mode. Awesome, it really works. So you have multiple themes and etc. So if this is something that you want to check out, I welcome you. Alright friends, that's it. And if you watch until the end, well, I really appreciate you. And if you like what you're seeing, don't forget to like and subscribe, and you can also support me by becoming a patron. Thank you for watching, and catch you in the next one. Peace.